I need to make investments into streams of revenue that can work for me so that I no longer have to trade time for money. God forbid something happened and I could no longer work.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Shaun Morgan, a full-time teacher. That's right, I teach every day just like you, and personal financial coach. And I'm here to help every teacher, whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. I am very excited today to have on Karyn Rudd with us. We're going to be doing a coaching call here. We're going to be just breaking down the numbers of her financial situation, and then we're going to look at her goals and see if we can help her reframe the way she's thinking about it and back into the life that she wants to lead. Karyn, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good, Shaun. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Karyn, just to give people context, can you tell them, where you are and what you do in education?
Absolutely. I teach English online. I have been doing that for the past 3 years. I teach English to speakers of other languages from all around the world. I am currently located in the Eastern Caribbean, the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I was born and bred here. However, I lived in the US for 17 years. I am a US citizen as well. So I currently have dual citizenship. The intention is to eventually one day return to the US permanently. However, I really would like to look into what areas financially money can be put in so that the money can work for me rather than I work for it. Because the intention is when making money, we really have to invest the money so that the day that we can't physically trade time for money anymore, that the money will work for us. So I met you, Shaun, or rather I saw you at one of the webinars that was hosted, and I felt that should be something that would be interesting for me to know about, because I've had a very successful medical massage practice for 23 years and made very good money, had a booming, thriving practice with a 6-month waiting list back in 2008 and never invested the money. So since I've been teaching English online for the past 3 years, of course, it's still in the growing period. And the day that I rather anticipate having a booming, thriving teaching career as well, that I would like to know where to invest the money and how to invest it. And since you are a teacher yourself, you understand the needs of the teachers, or needs of teachers rather, and it would be nice to know what road to take, what choices to make, and so on.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that overview. So, as we're looking into this is actually a very unique situation. So, if you're an in-classroom teacher, you obviously are going to have a different situation than Karyn, who is doing a teaching on her own, like a teaching business. So just keep in mind that as we're looking into her situation, she's also outside of the United States currently, with, of course, the goal to come back to the United States. So that also is going to affect the financial situation here. But I think this is a really fun, unique situation here. So to just get started, I want to make sure we all understand the numbers behind this situation. So I'm going to have a few questions about the numbers you shared with me, so that way we're all on the same page. So you have your core expenses of $450, just the things that you pay every single month. But I didn't really get any data on just like your fluctuating expenses. So we're gonna have to talk about that here in a minute. And then you mentioned some credit card debt of around $8,000. Not sure if that's changed since you've shared it with me. It's about the same. Okay. And then your income is around $500 a month from teaching. So, I mean, once again, everybody, she's living in a different country, so that's it's not the same as, you're not getting paid $500 a month on a salary here. So that's why she's also doing it on her own. So that makes a difference. About $73 a month from a massage, which is much lower than it used to be because of the changes in that practice. And then you're also living with your mother right now, and she's
We
bringing
live together because she had a stroke 6 years ago, and I've been her caregiver 24/7 for 6 years. She was 90% recovered from the right side being completely dead 6 years ago, but it has left her without any balance. So literally all she can do is just go to the restroom by herself, and that's it. Other than that, I am doing everything for her. And so that has been like an additional job in addition to working 2 jobs, having 2 careers running concurrently, simultaneously. So it's been really challenging.
Yeah, that is a huge thing. My parents have had my father's mother live with them, followed by my father's father live with them. Now my mother's living with them. So I've seen that and how much of a toll that can take on somebody. It is 24/7 around the clock, needing to care. So that is a huge thing to weigh on them. It also impacts your finances as you're taking care of her, but you also have your mom's pension that's going into your finances.
Yeah.
Right? And you paid that at $442. And then your mom has a business. Can you explain a bit about the business or the business income that's coming in?
Yes, the family business is about 75 years old. My father started it about 75 years ago. He was, I say was because he's deceased 22 years now. He started off as a mechanical engineer by trade, and then he studied locksmithing in Rochester, New York, came back to Trinidad and opened a business and thrived. He was really the only locksmith and licensed gunsmith for the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the Army and Armed Services, Armed Forces, and so on. And he was like a big fish in a small pool for many years, many years. The business did extremely well throughout the Caribbean, Central and South America. And as a child, I remember almost every other week him traveling to different islands throughout the Caribbean and Central and South America to work. And so that business did very well for many years until, like anything that is very successful, there is imitation. So many people jumped into the same pool. And so there's a lot more competition now. And of course, nothing is as it was. And so monetarily, the business is not doing as well as it used to. However, my mom does it in a salary monthly still, because she worked in the business with my dad for about 45 years. And it's only since she's had this stroke, she hasn't been able to work. And so there's that income that she earns per month, which is approximately 7,000 TT dollars. And I don't remember what was the figure I gave it, the conversion into US dollars, US currency. And then she earns a pension every month of 3,000 TT dollars and whatever that is in US currency. And that's basically what we live on, plus whatever little I earn at the moment from teaching and massage therapy, which is not a whole lot. But I hope that things will shift and change, and maybe I'll start teaching groups and start growing my YouTube channels and monetize them and so on. And maybe many of the streams of revenue will be able to come on board. And of course, with your advice, Shaun, as to how to invest the money once the money starts coming in. I don't want to wait until the money starts coming in. And I'm being very positive here in saying, yes, it's going to happen. I've experienced success before. I can experience it again. And so I'm hoping that we can put some ducks in a row prior to the success that I'm anticipating occurring as to how best to invest the money. Is it in real estate? Is it in stocks and bonds? How? As teachers, we need that tailor-made effort as to where to put the money so that they can grow and work for us rather than we work for it.
Yes, for sure. So before we get into the making money work for us stuff, I just want to make sure that we have the basics down. So the total in US dollars, because that's we had a conversion over there for your income, is just over $2,000, $2,000.45, right? So
I
that's
mean, sorry, US dollars per month.
US
Yes.
dollars, yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then the reason why it's important to put this into US dollars is, of course, you're shifting towards wanting to live in the US, so we need to figure out, how that.
And most
that
people
all
will
works.
understand the US dollar anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And then we also have the asset of your home. You have a paid off home, correct? And that's worth $441,000.
US currency,
That
yeah.
is in US dollars.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. In US dollars, that's wonderful. So that's your current situation. So I just want to start off. We have two goals, right? We have the goal to move back to the United States and the goal to start investing. All right. So let's start with the goal of moving back to the United States, and we'll talk about investing here in a bit. The first step to being able to move back to the United States is to have the money to move back to the United States, right? Do you have any idea how much it's going to cost to move back to the United States?
Well, I've done it more than once, but it has been some time. The last time I relocated and moved back to the US was in 2008. I moved to Boulder, Colorado, but unfortunately in 2008, the US economy crashed and burned, so I had to return to Trinidad in 2009. It's quite a costly venture. I'm sure it's a lot more now than it was, in 2008, because everything has gone up in price. So I really have no idea at this point in time, because in order for us to be able to purchase a property in the US, we would have to sell this property where we are currently in Trinidad and then convert it to US and relocate to the US. So I really, really couldn't give you an exact figure. I really don't know, because we have to look at cost of airfare, the airfare tickets. We have to look at whether or not we'll be staying at my younger brother's place in Florida, in Cooper City, or if we will rent a place on our own for some time before we look to purchase, which I think might be the first option for a brief period of time, and then the second option, and then finally deciding, okay, well, where do we want to settle? Where do we want to purchase and land, so to say? So if I had to make a rough estimate, I would have to assume it would cost about 25,000 US dollars, because there are things that need to be shipped. Of course, we're not taking everything. We would sell a number of things that we have here, but a number of things that we would want to take with us. And so that's going to cost a pretty penny as well.
Okay, so are you wanting to try and save that money before you go, or are you going to pull that money out of the home value?
Saving is not an option at this time, because there isn't enough earnings in order to save. Let's put it that way. The only way that we will be able to transition, and that is purchase a home, would be to sell where we are currently in Trinidad. And so, because I've moved countries before, I know what it takes. But this time, my mother, with her situation with stroke and having a heart condition as well, it's really risky. And it's, something that I have to think about long and hard. It's going to happen. It's happening. However, when, I can't say, maybe in about a year's time or so, maybe, or maybe 2 years max.
Okay. So you said savings is not an option. I'd like to dive into why this isn't an option. So we have that. Well, you have that core expenses of $450. Where does the extra $1,500 go? Like, what is that? Are those expenses looking like?
Well, firstly, let me just start off by saying Trinidad and Tobago is one of the most expensive countries in the world to live. Number one. It has the illegal drug trade is huge here. Trinidad and Tobago is a transshipment port for illegal drugs, has been for many, many years. And so the cost of living has escalated exponentially. And so to live here, even to survive on a daily basis, my God, sometimes all of my mother's salary goes into just buying food, because food has become so expensive. You have your light bill, you have your water bill, you have your food, which most of our money goes into food at this point in time. Because I don't have to eat, but my mother has to eat. She's on medications and she has to eat before she takes them. Okay. Of course, to run a vehicle, we have a vehicle, we have to put gas in the car when it has to be maintained and so on, which of course the family business covers those expenses when the car needs to be repaired. However, nonetheless, it's the gas, and of course, because we have a home, a single family home that has a yard and a garden, we've got gardeners who come every 2 weeks. It's $600, 600 TT every time they come. Can't remember. That's about 100 US every time they come. So it's about 200 US per month, and so on. And then there's a landline, and then there's a cell phone, and it's just unreal, you know.
Well, yeah, and I understand that.
I've never experienced things being as expensive. I know worldwide things have gone up a lot in price, but I was born here 60 years ago. I know I'm giving out my age. I'm 60 years of age, but I never ever expected the cost of living to have reached where it is today. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, okay.
And because the house that we live in is 50 years old now, it's calling for repairs. As you know, if you have a home and the older the home gets, the more expenses, you know, it costs. It's always a plumbing problem, and it's a this problem, it's a roof problem, it's a, you know, it's never ending.
And it sounds like a lot of your money is going towards, basic expenses.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the gardener, but I also don't live in Trinidad and Tobago, so I don't know what the necessity is there for that. But food, of course,
Because
is very high
it's a
expense.
tropical country. It's just 12 degrees north of the equator. We've got 2 seasons, a wet season and a dry season. And so right now we're getting a lot of rain, and the grass has to be cut. Otherwise it gets too high. The weeds take over, you know the drill.
Yeah. And you're taking care of your mother. So, I mean, naturally you want to get as much off your plate as possible. So that makes a lot of sense. I would still encourage you to track your spending. Just keep a record of how much it comes in, how much comes out every single month, where you're spending it. Just that way, if you see that you're spending things on stuff that's not important, maybe you don't use the landline. I don't know. Whatever it is, just try and cut back on those things. That way you can try and put some extra money in your pocket every single month. But that's doesn't seem like that's where we're going to find the money here to really do what you're wanting to do. So it sounds like we need to increase your income to help you with this transition. And you are now full-time online teaching, like you're running your own business, teaching online English as a second language. And if I'm not mistaken, you've connected with Joanne Kaminsky on teaching online.
Yes. I just the course that I signed up for just finished, that the Jumpstart course, helping teachers how to go completely independent, which I started before her course. As I mentioned, back in September, while I was still teaching on the teaching platform, and on the 2 teaching platforms where I taught. I mean, I started off at $5 US an hour. Now I'm at $14 US an hour. And of course, I'm in the process of understanding how to use Canva to create a flyer, to get my flyer out into the social media, charging a higher rate. And eventually I'd like to start teaching groups so that more revenue can start coming in per month. That would facilitate the goals and the plans that my mom and I have for a better life.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to recommend that you talk to her before you told me that you'd start talking to her. So she's great, and hopefully she can help you really increase that salary, because the rate is really, you only have so much time. You cannot increase
Exactly
your time, especially when your time is being taken up by your other job and your care for your mother. So you only have so much time, and you need to really maximize that time. And I'd recommend that you consider how much of this is your business and how you can treat it like a business that has employees that do things that you don't have to do, right? You have to teach because that's your job, right? That's what you are getting paid to do. But you don't necessarily have to do the social media. You don't necessarily have to do the the back end bookkeeping or whatever. And I realize that money seems tight, but investing into your business, to have someone who's really good at social media run your social media, so that way you get more clients and better clients and higher paying
you mean
clients.
like a virtual assistant?
Yeah, like a virtual assistant. And virtual assistants can be relatively inexpensive. You can hire someone in the Philippines who speaks great English for $7 an hour or something like that, or even less. Some of them are even less. So I mean, I realized that once again, $7 is an hour is a good amount of money, but it's still, you know, if you can have them generate you $35 an hour of US dollars, then it's a really good return on your investment. So that's something that I would look into. And I know that Joanne could help you with that as well, because she talks a lot about, you know, running it as a business. So
Yeah.
just want you to consider things that you can get off your plate that are going to allow you to spend more time on your business instead of less time thinking that you're working on your business when you're just tinkering with your business, if that makes sense. Because your business is what actually makes you money, and not the other things that you have to do to keep your business going.
Correct.
So that's just the only thing I can think of there to increase your salary or your income. But then there's also, so there's this massage therapy that you're doing. Is $73 a month, is that like a worthwhile thing for you to keep that business going, or would it be better for you to shift that more towards your online teaching business, or why
Well,
do you do it?
the way that I'm looking at it is this. When I started teaching on the first platform that I taught on, I was a very successful tutor, and I still am, according to the students, thank God. And I did very, very well on that first platform, as well as the platform that I just ended teaching with. But I really wanted to be independent. I wanted to have more freedom and more flexibility, and not to be so restricted and be, you know, feeling as though I was living in a dictatorship, so to say, because unfortunately, from my point of view, unfortunately, the teaching platforms, from what I've experienced, the two of them, whose names I will not call at this point, have become very dictatorial in how teachers are treated. And it's really the teachers that run, or rather put money in their pockets. Maybe they haven't connected the dots, but that's just my point of view. Hence the reason I'm completely independent now. And I just didn't want any more commission to be taken out of my hard-earned money. And so all of that inspired me to go completely independent. And so when I was very successful with the first teaching platform, I had a discussion with my mom and told her that I was going to stop doing massage. And she said, well, why stop? Just raise your price. I was like, okay. So I raised my price to 500 US an hour. And again, I don't know how much that is conversion wise into US dollars. Because when I left the US 22 years ago, I was charging 60 US dollars an hour for massage. So I'm not making a whole lot more compared to what I was earning 22 years ago, but I had to charge what the market here will bear. And so my point of view is this, that I decided that I would continue to do the massage because the earnings from the massage will help to facilitate paying things in local TT dollars or Trinidad and Tobago dollars. For example, buying food, putting gas in the car, getting some medications for my mom, and so on. And it isn't enough. There aren't enough steady clients anymore in my massage therapy business that would, for example, interfere with my teaching business. I got all the way down. I went from doing massage 7 days a week before COVID, 7 days a week from 7 in the morning till 11 at night, in a 6-month waiting list. Okay, that's how busy I was, because I'm a US trained medical massage therapist. And thankfully, I went to a very good school, so it helped me to thrive in this economy here. However, I went down to one steady client a month, and there have been a couple others that are streaming in. But the thing is, I have a clinic at home. I have an at-home clinic. So I work from home. I work both jobs from home, fortunately. So that way I'm able to be at home to take care of my mom 24/7. So at the moment, the massage practice is not interfering with my teaching practice at all, because I do make myself available to clients 7 days a week, as I've been doing for years. Except I've scaled down my teaching now to 3 days a week because I got burnt out, literally. And I don't want to stop doing the teaching. I want to work smarter, not harder. And so hence the reason I'm looking into groups. Eventually next year, I'm going to start teaching groups, as I mentioned, so that I can multiply my income. And I guess at some point things are going to shift and change. Would have to. Because at 60 and having been doing massage professionally for 23 years, I don't know how much longer my body will allow me to do the work that I'm doing. So I'm glad that I also do teaching, and I love it with a passion, so that I can, if the time came and I needed to scale off from doing massage, I could and still continue to teach.
Right.
But right now, the massage practice isn't booming enough that I would say, well, it's interfering with teaching. It's not at all. There
Right.
aren't enough clients.
That's good to know. And I'm really glad to have this context, because I was thinking that you could potentially, when you move to the United States, continue with massage therapy. But
I have no
considering
intention
that you
to do
are
that. I don't
considering
want
that
to do that.
you're wanting to scale out of that, then forget it. It's off the table. That's
Yeah,
no longer an option. Go
correct.
all in on online teaching, because there's really more income potential with online teaching,
Well,
and
I,
you can also do it less time and still get
yeah.
a good amount of money.
Well, Shaun, I applied to uh, many teaching positions in the US, but because my IP address says that I'm not in the US, I'm not even considered, number one. And number two, even though I have a VPN, a virtual private network, still somehow they know that I'm outside of the United States. So I can't even apply for teaching jobs that are based in the US where I could earn more money, you see? So it just really would be worth my while to transition eventually to the US so that I can continue my private teaching business, my independent teaching business rather. And if I wanted to, I could apply to teach at a school if I wanted to do that, or apply for a teaching position online, which there are many of them, but you have to be living in the United States.
Let's talk about
Fortunately,
the transition then, and how we can make that happen as quickly as possible, because that seems like the best way for you to increase your income is to be in the United States, right? That's going to allow you to either get a teaching job in line or in person, or just really multiply your online teaching business.
yes. As
So
I mentioned, go ahead. Go
your
ahead,
house
Shaun.
is worth $441,000. That's a really good amount for you to be able to transition and move using that money. Now you wanted to buy in Florida, and I looked in the area where you said your brother lived, where you were considering buying. And that amount is not necessarily going to get you the house that
I
you.
know. We know. Because my brother just bought a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house in Cooper City, and it started on $1 million. I think it's 2.5 million, something in that regard.
Oh man.
So
Well, I was looking in that surrounding area, and there are cheaper options if you're willing to buy into a mobile home. I'm not sure if you've considered that. Mobile homes don't have the benefit of appreciation as much. That's why they're cheaper. Their value kind of stays flat. But you could get into a mobile home for less than what you would bring in from selling your home. Therefore, you would be mortgage free, essentially still. And then you have
that's a
some left over.
consideration. But would the area or the areas, would one have a maintenance fee every month?
Some of them do, some of them don't. So that's something to look into. That some of them would be on like land that you are renting the land, but usually that fee is like $300 or $400 a month,
Okay.
which is much less than having a mortgage on some
Right.
of these places. So
And the
that's
only
just
thing about that concerns me is that Florida is often hit with so many hurricanes and
right.
storms. And I have family who live in Florida besides my younger brother. I have a sister who lives in another part of Florida, and twice 2 hurricanes passed through her area, and parts of her home are still damaged due to the hurricanes. So that's the only thing about, I'm thinking, my gosh, her house is made of bricks and she has damage. What about a mobile home? We would be gone.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people live in mobile homes in Florida, so it can't be that bad. But I just look into it, see what the flood warnings are in the area where the mobile home is. The more likely it is to flood, that means the more likely it is to be affected by a hurricane.
Yeah.
Look into how safe the neighborhood has been. Just try and get that, if insurance is even possible, because if they won't insure it, that means that you have hurricane issues there. If they will, then there's that. So that's just a consideration, because if you're able to buy a mobile home for 150 or $200,000, then you can have, $200,000 or maybe a bit less after you've sold your home and pay fees or whatever, to immediately put into an investment of some kind. So
You're
that's
right.
why I like this mobile home option. But of course, if safety is your number one concern and you're worried about that, then you can't put a price on safety. So those are just the things to consider. But if you put all
Well,
your
that,
money down on a mortgage of, say, a $500,000 home, you might be able to have a relatively small a mortgage as well, and then start to build from there if you can increase your income. So
well, Shaun, that's a great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that with me.
yeah.
Mhm.
I would just really say that if you want to make a difference in your situation, the step is to sell a house and get over to the United States as fast as you can, because
Yes,
you'll be able to get a higher paying job, and
correct.
you don't have to deal with, we're of course dealing with prices increasing, but it sounds like prices have skyrocketed in
Oh, yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago. So that's if you want to get lower prices, then moving is probably the best option as quickly as you can.
Yes, indeed. Correct. So
So
that, go
you want
ahead.
to talk about investing next, right?
Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
the next question. It's, for me, investing is important as soon as possible. Uh, but if you're not having any leftover income to put towards investments, it's kind of hard to invest, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the first step is to move and make sure you have income coming in, that you have a dependable amount that you can start investing to be able to, get the investments going. But what questions do you have about starting to invest?
Well, I know one of the main forms of investments, or the main form of investment of an investment that people have been using for many, many years is real estate. But of course, we know that that fluctuates and can fluctuate based on the economy and based on what's happening worldwide. But for example, I've got a friend in Scotland and she has a number of properties, and so all of those are rentals, and she said quite a bit of the money that she earns from them, she puts them in stocks and bonds. So I know that there are other ways that people can invest their money other than in real estate or in addition to real estate. So
Yeah.
I don't know what options there are for teachers, since that's your main focus.
You know, um, for real estate, the only thing that is worrisome about investing in real estate is that things can go wrong very quickly, and you need to have a buffer. So I invest in real estate. I had a buffer. Things went wronger than my buffer, so I'm dealing with that right now. And I'm going to have a whole podcast where I talk about the issues that real estate has caused. I have other ways to handle it, but like, when things can go wrong, they can go really wrong. So if you don't have a good, sizable emergency fund on hand, real estate can drain your income instead of building it up. Now there are ways to invest in real estate to get around that. I mean, for example, you can look into really reputable companies that are turnkey companies that have real estate investments that are going to bring in good money, and also they're well managed, so they're not going to be ruined or have major expenses up front. In turnkey just means that you buy it and it's ready to go.
Yeah.
So those are some options. There's also, you can invest in, like, it's kind of like a stock. It's called a REIT. It's a real estate investment trust. So you're investing in real estate, but you're just purchasing into the fund instead of actually owning the asset. And then there's private versions of that. I'm invested in one, not an affiliate, but it's called Fundrise. It's just a private real estate investment trust. And then there's new companies I don't remember the name of, that allow you to like buy a portion of a single family residence and get income back from that as a rental. So there are ways to invest in real estate beyond just like owning something outright. But the thing about real estate is it's going to take a lot of time, right? So if you want to invest in real estate, you need to be willing to put in hundreds of hours of learning about real estate to really understand it well enough to do it, to not lose money on it, because real estate is very nuanced. It's not like, okay, stocks over time go up according to past performance. So if you put money in stocks, it'll probably be worth more later. That's everything you need to know about stocks, really. I mean, if you want to invest in individual stocks, it's going to take a lot more education. But if you're investing in, say, an index fund, the index says that it's going to follow the market, and according to historical returns, the market goes up. Put money in, you'll probably have more money later. Probably. That's stock investing. It is pretty simple. Real estate is much more nuanced than that. So if you want to invest in real estate and you're really interested in real estate, I don't want to discourage you. I just want you to realize that it's not something you just throw money at. You have to, make sure you have a good, solid financial position and make sure that you understand it well enough to invest in it. If that makes sense.
Oh, what do you have your money invested in?
Mostly real estate, because I've taken the time to invest in it. So I have my money in a few properties in my local area right now. I'm actually looking to transition that into commercial properties instead of residential properties at the moment.
Why?
Because tenants are sometimes hard to manage. I bought in an area that had tenants that were just much more high maintenance, and it kind of burned me out. Like you said, burnout, it happens. So I'm looking into moving that into something that's not going to have higher maintenance tenants, just because I want to be able to manage it myself without having to spend a lot of hours managing it. So that's why I'm looking into that. But once again, I started learning about real estate in 2018. And I listen to real estate podcasts, I read real estate blogs, I watch real estate YouTube videos, and I've done that for years. So that's what has got me to this point where I want to invest in real estate, and I feel like I understand it well enough to do that. But I mean, I also have money in index funds in my retirement accounts. So like as a full-time teacher, I have a 403b that I'm able to put money into every single month. I have an HSA, which is a health savings account. The 403b is just like a tax vehicle in the United States. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. It just protects your money from taxes. So the 403b protects your money from taxes. Then you can invest it in something like an index fund, which is you just put money into that, and then they invest it into multiple companies in the stock market, and it grows with that, with the market. So then I have money in the HSA, a health savings account, but I invest that money also in index funds. So if I'm putting money in stocks, I put it in index funds because they generally follow the market, and I believe the market will go up over time. Not guaranteed, but I believe it will. And then all my other money I'm putting into real estate because I've taken the time to learn about it. But if someone doesn't want to learn about it, then I say, index funds, or if there's something else that you want to take the time to learn about, you can. There are other options, but generally speaking, stocks, are a good way to just grow your income over time. If you are going to invest in those, if you don't want to spend the hundreds of hours necessary to learn something else.
Thank you.
So, really, just as a kind of a wrap up here, then I would say the first step is to move, if you can, as fast as you can. Don't rush it, of course, but figure out how long it's going to take you to sell the house, and then you'll have the money to move. Figure out what you're going to do when you move there. Renting is actually a semi-decent option, because as much as I love real estate, if you can rent for cheaper than your mortgage is going to be, you're going to save money, right? And while rent will over time go up, right now rents are probably going to be lower than mortgages because interest rates are so high, unless you can buy something outright like a mobile home, right? Those are two options that I would definitely consider, because if you renting, right, and then prices came down, or you could then jump in once prices dropped a little bit, or you can wait for a good option, a good deal on a house to buy, or things like that. If you have the money on hand, you're ready to jump in whenever you find the right place, instead of moving and just like hurrying to find something. You're gonna buy the wrong thing if you hurry. So if you don't find something that's really good that you can jump right on into, probably just renting until you find the right thing is a great option. And then make sure you have that money, if you're holding on to it, in a good place. Don't don't put the money into like a stock because you could lose it.
Yeah.
But don't just have it sit in like a regular bank account, because regular bank accounts pay very little. There are something called high yield savings accounts that are paying like 4 or 5% right now on interest every, not every month 5%, but like, over the year they're paying you compounding monthly. So it's a really good return on your investment by just putting it into a savings account that you can pull out immediately. So there is that option if you're interested in holding on to the cash while you're waiting. And then once you've got a house, once you've got dependable income, just start putting that money into investments as you can. Like I said, index funds, they grow, they have grown dependably over time. So assuming that the stock market keeps going up, it's going to grow. But just one more question for you, as we're considering these investments, how much longer are you hoping to work before you retire?
That's a good question. I always considered that I would probably work until I croak, because I really love what I do for a living, and it would be nice to be able to still keep my brain active, because I'm constantly doing webinars and seminars and courses that would help to stimulate my brain as I go into the evening of my youth, so to say. And I don't know, it depends on how things grow with the teaching business. I wish I could say I could do massage until the day I die, but I won't invest in that too heavily, because we never know what lies around the corner for us. And so with the teaching, of course, I am really, really hopeful that it will grow exponentially. And then I can start to create many streams of revenue, so that the money will work for me rather than I work for it. Because trading time for money, like I said, I mean, we never thought my mom would have had a stroke at 76 on her 76th birthday. So, and she was, we all thought pretty healthy and very mobile and busy and so on and active. But again, we never know what lurks around the corner, lies around the corner for us. And so, I need to make investments into streams of revenue that can work for me, so that I no longer have to trade time for money. God forbid something happened and I could no longer work, you see?
Right.
So hence the reason I'm talking with you today, because that is what I'm looking at in terms of the way forward.
Okay, so now I'm thinking about this more. I would kind of probably even shy away from index funds now that I'm thinking about it. So this is what you want: streams of income, right? Things that bring streams of income are things like REITs would give you a stream of income, most likely. You have to look into some of them.
Repeat that, sorry.
REITs, the real estate investment trust.
Oh, real estate.
Right.
Okay.
So those real estate investment trusts often will pay out income, like rent income to the people that own it. Dividend yielding stocks, those dividends are income, right? It's money that goes into your pocket out of the stock, instead of an equity stock. An equity stock, you hold it until it grows, and then you sell it and you reap the benefit of it being worth more money when you sell it. Well, a dividend is paying you usually quarterly, sometimes yearly, for owning the stock. So those are things that are going to bring in income if you're trying to invest. And then, looking into those real estate platforms that you don't necessarily own the real estate, but you can start bringing money in, just because those things are going to pay you money without you having to spend all of that time gaining the education. And you can gain the education over a couple of years and then maybe jump into real estate. But if you're just wanting to park your money right now, those things that are going to pay you dependable income are great options there. So just like look into those things, decide which one's best for you, right? Those are just some options for you. And then really, honestly, at this point, I would say your business is actually where you want to be investing, because a business is an investment, right? Investing in, like you said, your YouTube channel. So that way you can, because YouTube is passive income. Once the video is out there, every time someone watches it, if you have met their requirements or whatever, you can bring in that passive income, right? And then, group coaching is something that you can of course do to keep bringing that money in, but then you can look into supporting people with courses, or bringing on other coaches into your business, or anything. I'm not sure exactly what the best option or the way forward is for you, but the business can be a great investment if you can turn it into a passive form of income. So I would just say looking into those income yielding investment options, such as those REITs or dividend stocks, and then or investing in royalties is another thing that you can look into. I mean, I'm just anything that's
What
going
is
to be
that?
dependable income.
What
A
is the
royalty
royalty?
is when you own something that anytime somebody uses it, they pay you. So I mean, like,
So like Airbnbs?
no, so
No?
like a book, like if you owned a book,
Mm,
every time someone buys a book, they pay you for the book. You own music, every time they use the music, you can invest in those things.
yes.
So that I'm just throwing out things for you to consider, because they bring in dependable streams of income, right? If you were 20 and you were going to invest in retire in 35 years, right? Equities grow really, really well. But since you want dependable streams of income now, then that's why I'm talking about these things that bring in streams of income little by little, right? If you're willing to put in the work, and Airbnb is a really great way to make money. I on the house I used to live in, I actually built an Airbnb in my not my backyard. I owned land, so I built a small house there, and we Airbnb it out, and it covered my mortgage. If
Wow.
you're considering, where to buy in Florida, if you can find a place that has like a little suite to the side, or a house in the back, or a second apartment, a duplex, things like that, and you could rent out or Airbnb out that little portion, that is a great way to make an additional stream of income as well. Reduce your mortgage, pay your entire mortgage, bring in dependable income. So those types of things that are going to bring dependable income are things to consider as you're trying to not work for your money, but have your money work for you.
Yeah. But those are great ideas, as Shaun. You've given me a lot of food for thought. I mean, some of the things that you shared I didn't know about. And so I'm glad we're having this conversation today so that you're able to share that information with me, which I appreciate highly. And some of the pieces of information that you shared with me today, would you be willing to send those pieces of information to me regarding the real estate and other things that we talked about today?
Yeah, I'll send you a summary of things for you to consider. And then I'm also going to post the things that we talked about in the show notes for this show on teachermoneyshow.com/podcast. You can find all the show notes for this show, and you'll be able to find them and reference them there as well.
I appreciate that so much, Shaun. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. It's great talking to you.
Nice chatting with you too.
If you'd like to come on the podcast for coaching, to share an expert opinion, or just to talk about a topic you think is relevant, I'd love to talk to you. Just fill out the form at teachermoneyshow.com/guest. I look forward to talking with you.